Mayor Allen, you may proceed with the meeting.
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Ahmad Chapman and Councillor Moore, that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of October 21, 2020 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Due to COVID-19, Council is taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. As such, members of Council will be participating in the meeting electronically. The meeting is being live streamed, and residents are provided with the following options to watch or listen to the Council meeting. You can watch the meeting live on the Township's website at www.springwater.ca. You can listen to the meeting from a telephone by dialing 647-558-0588 and using the meeting ID 818-9944-0101 and then the pound sign after that. This option is available during the meeting. For those unable to watch the live stream, you can review the meeting at your convenience by watching the video on the Township's YouTube channel, which you'll find the link for on the website. Council, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest this evening? All right, moving on to 3.1. I now call upon Dr. Stu Murdoch and Mitch Green, Physician Recruitment Coordinator from the Barrie Area Physician Recruitment, joining us electronically via Zoom with a deputation with an update on the Barrie Area Physician Recruitment. You may share your screen during the presentation and ensure that you stop sharing once the presentation is completed, please. Members of Council, please hold questions and comments until the presentation is finished. Dr. Murdoch and Mitch, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mayor.
Okay. Are you guys able to see that okay?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So thank you. Good evening, Mayor Allen and councillors. Thank you very much for having us tonight. We have a very short presentation and update for Barrie Area Physician Recruitment. My name is Mitch Green, and I'm covering for Brittany Thompson during her maternity leave this year. I am joined by Dr. Stu Murdoch, who is the chair of the Barrie Area Physician Recruitment Committee and the director of postgraduate education at the University of Toronto. We're happy to be here again, providing an update for our accomplishments in physician recruitment this year. So what is BAPR and who funds it? So Barrie Area Physician Recruitment is an organization and committee that was formed in order to help with physician recruitment and retention efforts in our region, specifically related to family and specialist medicine. So our committee is funded by the townships of Springwater, Oro-Medonte, Innisfil, the City of Barrie, and Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre. Each funding group has the opportunity to have a community member in the group and to provide direct feedback and timely information. So in this case, Mayor Allen is the representative for Springwater, and it has been very helpful to have him on our committee to help ensure that the communities of Springwater receive timely access to primary care services in the region. So COVID-19 changes to recruitment. So this year has been very different for us, as I imagine it has been for many other industries. But we managed to pivot quite early in the development of COVID-19 to continue to successfully recruit both family medicine and specialist medicine physicians. As a first measure of safety, we began offering physically distanced or digital site visits and interviews for our candidates. This is something that we have done previously to COVID, but it has become much more of a regular occurrence. Our ability to continue recruitment efforts amidst this type of change has been instrumental to our continued success. Specifically with family medicine, the usual process of bringing in physicians to clinics, spaces became immediately more restricted, but we have managed to provide necessary timely information to those candidates via digital sources where necessary. Also this year, just an important note, because of COVID-19, the examination dates for many potential candidates has been delayed. So previously, these exams would have taken place closer to May earlier this year, but the choice was made to delay these exams due to safety concerns. So we're seeing a little bit of a delay, but there's still a lot of things in progress being made. So what have our successes been in 2020? So since January 2020, we have been successful in hiring 9 new family physicians. 2 of these new physicians are Dr. Nelubina and Dr. Spence, and they both started at the Springwater Health Clinic. So they've created brand new practices, which is great. These are both graduates from the Barrie Family Medicine Teaching Unit, working with Dr. Murdoch and his team there. So we will continue to bring family physicians to the region, and hopefully we can continue to add resources for the County of Springwater. We have also hired 29 specialists to Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre. I'll highlight some of those specialties on the next slide, but even amidst the changes that have occurred due to COVID, we've been very, very successful in recruiting specialty needs for our region. And then finally, BAPR has also completed 38 site visits and tours to prospective physicians to date. So what type of specialists have we recruited? With regards to specialty recruitment, these are just a few of the specialties that we've recruited in the past year. We have added additional resources for emergency medicine, cardiologists, child and adolescent psychologists, complex malignant hematologist, and a first for RVH, adding a new physiatrist that will be starting later in 2021. So that's very exciting for the physiatry kind of program. So now I will pass it over to Dr. Murdoch, and he can speak to the Family Medicine Teaching Unit.
Certainly our success has been within the medical education world. Certainly, as Mitch said, it's been quite disruptive, but residents, specifically our residents, have continued through COVID. And they actually a lot of them have been redeployed to different centers, but specifically more to front lines, which at RVH has been in the emergency ward and ICU. So their training has continued. They have all successfully graduated. And as mentioned, exams have been on hold. They've been attempted again this fall. Half of them were canceled again and half of them were continued, but they've all been able to obtain provisional licenses, which means they are working remotely from a supervisor, but they certainly have been able to provide full scope of care. So that's been really exciting and for them to be in the front lines, and they certainly are going to remember their training days in this pandemic, and will be telling stories when they get to my age and their faculty. But we know what we've done. We've had 9 residents every year. We train them all within our community family health team, and our retention rate has been quite high, Mitch. And certainly we've had a lot of recruitment, a lot of success, but the one big thing is how many people do want to apply to this program. And I think I mentioned last year, we had 586 applicants to the Barrie Family Medicine Teaching Unit, as well as the Newmarket Teaching Unit. We combine those streams. So across the country, people do want to come to our area. And next slide. And in terms of retention, it's good. This is our newest group this year, just starting. This group did have a pause in medical school, so we're going to have to watch them really closely, but they're here for a long period of time, and they were just so excited to get back into being a doctor.
So our BAPR funding request. So Barrie Area Physician Recruitment kindly requests the financial support in the amount of $8,000 from the Township of Springwater to help further our initiatives in physician recruitment. So thank you for your time and consideration as always. We appreciate the opportunity to provide this update. And and all the best in these very, very challenging times.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murdoch and Mitch, for the presentation, the update. Before I get questions, can I have a mover and a seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Ritchie and Deputy Mayor Coughlin, thank you. So open it up to comments, questions from council. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to Dr. Murdoch. Welcome, and thank you for the presentation. It's always nice to see us come before council. That program that you were talking about, can you expand on that a little more and just explain to us what it's all about?
Program, which specific program?
I'm under the understanding that you're putting on a program for these young doctors to come to. No, or
No, it's a national application process.
right?
So any Canadian medical graduate, as well as in Ontario, there will be 300 international medical graduates can choose to apply and do their family medicine training in Barrie.
Okay.
So we have 586. So all these people have finished medical school, and then they try to decide, they have to decide on what kind of career they want, family medicine being the most popular one. And if they choose to be family medicine, then they choose where they're going to train in Canada. And then they can rank which their first choices, second choices, third choices. But for our program in Barrie, last year we had 586 applicants, and we have 14 spots between Barrie and Newmark.
We're a growing community, there's no doubt about it, but that's great news. I support this. Mayor Allen sits on it. I sit on the one from Midland Penetang, but I support this wholeheartedly, because bringing doctors to our area is very, very vital. And of course, we're in a growing area as well too. So great work, and keep up the good work too. Thank you.
And just to comment too around bringing doctors, we still have a high percentage of senior physicians that are getting close to retirement. The last 5 years, there's been a lot. We're almost getting to the end. It's not quite as bad as it was 5 years ago, but we've really plugged every hole, which means every retiring physician, their patients did find a physician to cover. And that was through Mitch's coordination and Brittany's coordination over the last 5 years.
Good news. Thank you very much.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just wanted to say congratulations, first of all, for bringing in the specialists that you did. So impressive and so needed. So I think that's a great list. I'm assuming that's not the whole list, but it's a great list. So I'm also interested to know what you've had to do with the COVID environment in enticing some of these docs to come when you can't really do the same type of dinners and sort of schmoozing and get-togethers. So how have you accommodated that and still managed to get them to stay?
Yeah, for sure. That's been probably one of the more interesting components of my time in the role since Brittany went on mat leave. Wasn't something that we covered in our training process, but I think what we've really leveraged technology over the past few months to do what we can, given the circumstances that we're in. A lot of especially with family medicine, it's important for them to be able to see the clinics where they're going to be able to work. It's important for them to speak with their colleagues that they're going to be surrounded with every day. So the clinics that we've reached out to have been very accommodating in terms of being able to, even if it's using FaceTime, to give them a virtual tour as if they were there. That's been a really, really big help. So it's, really the community partners have helped us guide how we still make it attractive for them to come, especially if they're not from the area originally. So, we've had we recruited someone earlier this year from Toronto, and that was right in the middle of COVID. So, again, it's leveraging technology to do what we can to make it enticing for them. So.
These graduates, they are very good with technology. They're teaching us all the time how to use technology properly. and Councillor Moore, I support the specialist recruitment. Sometimes is really maybe not the hottest topic for a lot of municipalities because they hear from their constituents that they need family doctors. But as a family physician, having a good specialist lineup just really improves care for our patients, because fewer and fewer people now have to go out of town. Really, only issues now to go out of town is services that we don't have, and really it's around brain and spinal surgeries, not in our area. Other than that, very few of our patients have to leave. Some of the real subspecialty cancer diagnoses still have to go down to Princess Margaret, but not as many as they used to be.
Follow on, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to reach out to our Director of Finance, do we have $8,000 still in our reserves and our fund to support this?
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Moore.
You're a new Director of Finance, CEO Schmidt.
Many hats. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Moore. So obviously with the times that we're in, the unprecedented times that we're in, we were not able to have our annual golf tournament obviously to generate funds for this. So we will be putting an allocation in the budget for 2021, subject to us being able to have a tournament in 2021. And should we be able to raise funds for this, then obviously we'd be in a position to be able to come back to council and report. But at this time, we do not have the funds in that account. So.
Thank you. Dr. Murdoch and Mitch, two questions. The two doctors in the Springwater Medical Center, they're starting a practice. They're not taking over a practice, I understand. So that would mean that they're accepting patients. So if we hear of anybody who's looking for a doctor, we obviously would forward them to them. Is that true? And also the 60% retention rate, is that about the same as has been the case, or is that varied at all given the current environment?
So I can speak to the first part of the question. So in terms of if you have someone that is looking for a family physician, you can always feel free to direct them. I know, Mayor Allen, you have my contact information. Yes. You can always feel free to direct them directly to me. And then I'll kind of guide them there, based on what I'm hearing in the community in terms of registration numbers. So at certain times, a physician will open up their registration until they get to a certain cap. So depending on where they at, as I believe they started, I think in the middle of summer, I know they had a lot of applications, but it always helps if they can come to me first, and then I can help guide them based on availability in the community, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And the 60%?
Yeah, we ran our numbers. We don't kind of look at our graduates right now because a lot of them will go on and retrain. A lot of them will do locums. Some of them will travel. Really, we get them back either right away or we get them back in a year or two when they've kind of gone away, and then they kind of go, wow, Barrie really was that good. We have 3 graduates right now in the community doing locum work, which is kind of, they're trying to figure out what's the best situation, where they want to work, and what's their small business going to look like, and who are their practice partners. So it takes a while for them to grow. Remember, they have come off of about 12 years of schooling, and so they don't want to get tied down. So they do kind of take a little bit of I don't want to say a break because they still work, but they don't dive in there because they do need to manage their own wellness and recharge. And obviously coming through COVID, pretty stressful for all of them. So these locums will resurface shortly. And our numbers still are always about 40% family medicine, but we also do train our hospitalists and our emergency physicians. Are graduates of our program.
And one final question from me. What is that type of doctor that you refer to, PH something, PHY?
It's
What type of medicine is that?
It's called a physiatrist, which is a specialist in physical and rehabilitation medicine. Where we use them a lot is they do a lot of different nerve studies, and they deal with more musculoskeletal and nerve. So it's kind of like a combination of a neurologist and an orthopedic surgeon.
Very interesting. Councillors, any other comments, questions? Well, thank you both for coming and presenting to us. We'll do all we can to pull the rabbit out of the hat, so to speak, and that's all we can say at this point, but we do appreciate your efforts and results all the time. So thank you again for presenting to us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Very, very much appreciate your support. Thanks.
Thank you. So we'll let you sign off, and the recommendation is the delegation from Dr. Stu Murdoch and Mitch Green from Barrie Area Physician Recruitment, providing a physician recruitment update be received. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay. Since the next item, 3.2, since the principal's integrity report at item 3.2 relates to me personally, I've made a personal decision to relinquish the chair to Deputy Mayor Coughlin for item 3.2 and not to vote on this item, and also for question period. I do wish to make a statement with respect to item 3.2 to correct some information and file a court statement of facts, which was not included in the Integrity Commissioner's report. The report does not recommend any suspension of compensation, and therefore I do not have a pecuniary interest. I also do not have a personal conflict of interest under our code of conduct. So I'll turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Coughlin at this point.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And at this point, I would ask Clerk Ainsworth to welcome me from our Principals Integrity, Jeff and Janice.
Thank you very much. We're just going to make a few very brief comments and then respond to questions if there are any. First of all, we no longer serve as your Integrity Commissioner. However, we did at the time of the complaints addressed in this report and are obligated to provide our report in conclusion of the matter. We received 3 complaints July 5th, 2019 from Councillors Moore, Hanna, and Cabral regarding Mayor Allen's apparent conduct and behavior arising at a golf tournament June 26, 2019. As noted in paragraph 12 of the report, we undertook an investigation which began with notifying the respondent of the complaints on July 8th and receiving his response on July 11th, essentially denying any improper conduct. We thus proceeded in the days that followed to interview relevant witnesses to the events. Following the provision of additional information on July 24th, we made inquiries of the OPP as to potential charges being pursued. On August 14th, we provided our preliminary findings report to the respondent, and shortly thereafter, when it was confirmed that charges were being pursued before the court, we suspended the matter pending disposition, and we reported that to you. The matter having been dealt with on the merits by a court of competent jurisdiction, we are of the view that the mayor has acknowledged responsibility for his conduct and no further sanction is warranted. We believe the report speaks for itself, and we're available to answer questions, if any.
Thank you for your report, Janice. Before I do go to Mayor Allen, I believe we need to have this motion put on the table. So I'm looking for a member and a seconder, please. Thank you. So Councillor Chapman and Councillor Moore. And we will open up for discussion. Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I'd like to make a statement with respect to this, and I'll address it. Council, staff, and members of the public. I'd like to begin by thanking Principals Integrity for their report. I accept the recommendation in the report that it is not in the public interest to recommend any sanctions. Despite the complaints filed by the complainants, there is no evidence and no findings that I have breached the code of conduct. I feel that it is important that the facts of the event in question be expanded upon and that council and the public are made aware of additional facts that were accepted by the Ontario Court of Justice on July 31st, 2020. On the evening of the golf tournament on June 26, 2019, I did not refuse to allow staff at the golf course to call to arrange a ride home for me. In fact, I waited with staff for over 75 minutes for a driving service to arrive that never showed up. I did not loudly and repeatedly identify myself as the mayor of Springwater in an effort to not have staff report the incident. In fact, I was hesitant to identify myself at all. I did not drive off with my headlights off. I drove off with only my daylight running lights on. The witness statements from the staff members at the golf course and the agreed statement of facts, which was filed as Exhibit 2 at my July 31st, 2020 court hearing, confirm that I did not do what is alleged in paragraph 18 of the Integrity Commissioner's report. The Integrity Commissioner's report referred to an agreed statement of facts in paragraph 29 of their report. These facts are Exhibit 1, which was filed and accepted by the court on July 31, 2020. However, there was also a more expansive statement of facts that was filed as Exhibit 2 with the consent of the Crown and was accepted by the court at the July 31st hearing. This exhibit was not referenced in the Integrity Commissioner's report. Because of my desire to be transparent and my accountability to the people of Springwater as mayor, I will read into the record the full accepted statement of facts by the Ontario Court. Exhibit 2 is accepted by the court states, after the golf tournament's dinner, he attended the driving range to hit more golf balls. It was when staff saw him get into his car, signal and pull over and stop at the driving range that he came to their attention. As indicated by the Crown, it was at this time that Mr. Allen was seen by a staff member having difficulties with his balance. He did hit golf balls at the driving range, became more tired, and when staff approached him, one member gave Mr. Allen two alternatives. Either he wait for a designated driving service to be called by them, or for Mr. Allen to arrange for someone to come and pick him up. Mr. Allen was not intoxicated. He did consume 2 alcoholic beverages with dinner as a result of a combination of his medical conditions, which include multiple sclerosis, a double knee replacement, along with being on the golf course for a full day in the heat and being tired. The combination of these factors created a situation of physical difficulty for Mr. Allen. As Mr. Allen did not want to get into details concerning his medical conditions or make a scene, he cooperated, accepted the staff's assistance, and agreed to have the designated driving service called. When asked to identify himself, Mr. Allen was hesitant as he did not want to use his position to influence anyone. However, he was continually asked, and as a result, he eventually told them his name and position. He said this once. Staff Googled him to confirm his identity. This was how staff was able to eventually give the police his name. After identifying himself, Mr. Allen and staff continued to wait for the designated driving service. During this time period, Mr. Allen politely cooperated with the staff of the golf course and waited patiently for over 75 minutes for the driving service to arrive. Mr. Allen did not have any encounter with any other members of the public. He showed no signs of being belligerent or uncooperative. While waiting for the driving service to arrive, the bugs started to get really bad, and so Mr. Allen asked the staff if he could sit in his car to avoid getting bitten. While waiting, the staff were unable to confirm if or when the designated driving service would come. After waiting for an additional 10 minutes while sitting in his car, Mr. Allen became tired of waiting and felt that he was fine to drive home. Mr. Allen drives a Prius hybrid, which, when started in warm weather, does not make an engine noise, as it initially goes into a quiet battery mode. There was a staff member standing off 2 meters from the front left exterior mirror of Mr. Allen's car and was startled when he saw the car start moving. The staff member moved off to the left. However, he was not in the direct path of the car and was not in any danger of being touched by the car. The headlights of the Prius, according to the manual, go on automatically when it is dark. Mr. Allen did not otherwise touch the light switch in his car. The staff member did not see the back lights on, causing the staff some concern and therefore the call to the police. Mr. Allen drove off the private property, onto the roadway safely, but did not touch his light switch from automatic to nighttime. As a result, the front running lights were being used. However, once on the roadway, given the combination of consumption of some alcohol, fatigue from a long day on the golf course in the hot sun, his double knee replacement, and the exacerbated multiple sclerosis symptoms caused him to, objectively speaking, drive without due care and attention. I repeat, this Exhibit 2 statement of facts was entered into the court with the consent of the Crown and was accepted by the court. In addition, I believe it's important that the timeline of events be made clear. This was not fully explained in the Integrity Commissioner's report. The golf tournament occurred on June 26, 2019. The first I heard about anything from anybody was 12 days later, on July 8, 2019, when I received a letter from the Integrity Commissioner indicating they had received 3 complaints from 3 counselors on July the 5th. These counselors did not attend the event, and none of them have ever spoken to me about the event or their concerns or complaints. None of them availed themselves of the informal complaint procedure as set out in the Council Code of Conduct. This informal complaint procedure is encouraged and recommends that if someone feels that the Code of Conduct has been breached, that they approach the person directly and discuss the matter with a view to resolving the issue. Had they done so, the matter would not have needed to be taken through the formal complaint process at the taxpayer's expense. Back to the timeline. The first contact by the OPP regarding this event did not occur until July the 12th, a full 16 days after the event, asking me to contact them, which I did that day. The OPP contacted me after the complaints had been filed with the Integrity Commissioner. I was going away on holidays with my wife, and it was agreed I would follow up with the OPP upon my return on August the 6th. As indicated in the Integrity Commissioner's report, the investigation was suspended pending the outcome of the criminal court matters. As you have all been made aware, the charges of impaired driving and dangerous driving were withdrawn by the Crown. There have been no findings that I was intoxicated or driving dangerously. The guilty plea I entered was in relation to a Highway Traffic Act offense of careless driving for failing to take in account my fatigue from being on the golf course all day, my pre-existing medical conditions, having 2 drinks with dinner, and for only driving with my daytime running lights after sunset. I acknowledge my mistake with respect to this, and justice has been served. Finally, this incident has contributed to the relationship strain that currently exists within Council. This incident has caused a great deal of stress for me and my family, in addition to a great deal of personal expense to defend myself. Despite all of this, I hope and encourage all of us to put this matter behind us and reestablish a good working relationship for the rest of this term for the benefit of our community that we serve. As Mayor, I am committed to continuing to work with Council and staff to achieve many progressive goals we have set during this challenging term. I ask, in addition to the recommendation with respect to this, that this statement be included with the posting of the Integrity Commissioner's report on the township website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And before I move to the rest of council, that was about 11 minutes, so we will forgive the procedural 10 minutes there for the rest of council as well. So if there's any other comments from other members of council. Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Colgan. I have questions for the Integrity Commissioners, Principles of Integrity. In your report, and as Mayor Allen has stated, there were a number of witnesses that were interviewed, as addition by not just yourselves, but the OPP. Mayor Allen's explanations are not consistent with the complaint that came forward from the witnesses to myself, and I would like you to please share with us what the witnesses had to say during your investigation.
Thank you, Councillor Hanna, and to Janice Jack. I believe you're still muted, Janice. Thank you.
Okay, I
You're good
don't
now.
believe so. Am I good?
You're good now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sure. What we typically bring forward is a findings report. In this particular case, we're bringing basically a recommendation report which discloses the disposition of the court. It's a little bit unusual because the actual investigation was suspended before we could actually produce our findings report to council. So we aren't making any findings in this report. We basically suspended, and we're satisfied that the disposition by the court of competent jurisdiction is appropriate. But the short answer is we do not share the various components of evidence that we receive. We make when we do an investigation, we interview the witnesses, we review the materials, and what we do is we assess and apply our own analysis to that. And that is in fact the role of an independent investigator. So we will not be providing with, with various details. It's not a criminal investigation that we conduct. It's basically an administrative investigation. We apply procedural fairness, but we do not, we're not compelled to provide you with a list of which witnesses and what the various statements were, and we have not brought you a findings report. So.
Thank you, Janice. And follow-up, Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I'm disappointed that we're not receiving those statements. Mr. Allen's explanation tonight is different than what we've heard in the past from witnesses. I understand there was at least 6 witnesses that made allegations. Those allegations were also given to the Ontario Provincial Police. They found there was witness statements credible enough in order to lay serious criminal charges. Can you share with us then, if you can, the witness statements? The Crown made a statement at the plea that Mayor Allen submitted. Can you share with us then what the Crown's brief had to say during that court proceeding?
We're not in a position to share with you what the Crown's brief said. The Crown's brief is the Crown's brief. We didn't work with the Crown. We stepped away while the Crown conducted their work. In fact, the agreed statement of fact that was filed with the court is available in the court file. And I'm certain that the mayor could provide you with a copy of that. And the mayor has the supplementary statement that he's providing this evening.
Thank you. I guess the problem I have is that we as council had an obligation when we received report of a serious code of conduct violation. We did our duty, and that we did not want to be complacent. We didn't want the public to think that we were not doing our duty and we were covering something up. So we did our duty. It was an unfortunate thing that we had to do. We weren't comfortable doing it, but we did it, and we left it up to you. And I recall my wordings in my statement to you was, I leave it up to you to do whatever action you consider necessary. However, after interviewing all the witnesses and so on, and the explanation we received from the mayor tonight, it makes it look like we as council were making allegations or saying things that weren't in fact accurate. So I'm disappointed with your responses.
Well, let
Thank
me,
you, Councillor, and thank you. And just point of order through the chair, please. Thank you, Councillor Hannah. And is there other members of
sorry,
council?
Deputy Mayor, may I respond, please?
I thank you for that, Janice. However, there was no question posed by Councillor Hannah. Councillor Hannah has spoke more than twice to this. If he would choose to have you respond, that is to his discretion. I don't want to impede on that for him, but I do believe that it was a statement made by Councillor Hannah. Councillor Hannah,
yes,
thank you.
That was correct.
Thank you. And is there other members of council that would like to ask questions or have further discussion? Thank you. Councillor Cabral, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I guess it's interesting to note a couple of comments I'd like to make is first with respect to the statement of facts that was agreed upon in court. The terminology I think that would be used there is a plea bargain was arranged, and a plea bargain is when certain charges are withdrawn and the party agrees to plead guilty to some other charges, and the whole concept there is to try and mitigate the amount of court time that's required. But one of the things that I found with respect to the actual Code of Conduct final report is that I did find other Code of Conduct reports similar in nature where someone on council had engaged in behavior and actions that led to not only a Code of Conduct complaint, but also criminal charges. And there's one in particular out in Kingston. The name of the councillor escapes me at the present time, but the firm that dealt with that particular one was Principles Integrity. And I find it rather interesting that in that particular case, it seemed to me that Principles Integrity retained their independence, retained their objectivity, clearly made it known in that particular Code of Conduct report that they were independent, and outside of what the judicial side did in court with respect to the charges, I think there were 2 charges laid there, criminal charges, they were dealt with by the court. Yet when that final report came before council, Principles Integrity was not satisfied with what the court did and the acknowledgement that the counselor had made there. But in that particular report, they recommended a 30-day suspension without pay. So I'm kind of trying to put that in perspective here, because basically I'm getting from the final report that Mayor Don Allen acknowledged in court. He acknowledged in court, respective of the criminal charges. The acknowledgement in court was not respective of the Code of Conduct charges. So when I look at the one in Kingston, that's exactly what I see. But when I look at the one here, it seems that we're relying on what happened in court to determine the outcome of the final report regarding the Code of Conduct complaint against the mayor. So I have a bit of trouble with that, especially when we're using the term acknowledgement, because this happened last year. And quite frankly, I may look like I'm the person who laid the complaint, but the reality of the matter is that someone else put me in the position where I had little or no choice in putting that complaint forward. And if I recall, I was disappointed and I was very upset, and I felt very badly about having to do it. But at the same time, I asked that it be impartial and it be fair, and that the investigation be carried out. I was put in that position not by myself. I was put in that position by another individual, and that individual is Mayor Don Allen. Now, I would have to have compromised myself in not filing that complaint. I would look complicit in covering up something that allegedly had happened, and I would also have to suggest that I would feel also that I was condoning those actions. So as far as an acknowledgement goes, there was an acknowledgement made maybe in court for the criminal aspect of this, but certainly not to the residents of Springwater Township, certainly not to council, certainly not to the staff. As a matter of fact, when the newspapers did bring this out, that's how council and most people found out about it. It wasn't through Mayor Allen after the court had finally finished. It was the newspapers that brought it to our attention. So when we're talking about someone who says they're remorseful and they've acknowledged things, I don't see that at all. As a matter of fact, it was weeks after that the newspaper brought it forth, and I'm sure that Mayor Allen had ample opportunity to speak to council, speak to residents, let us know what happened, and it was his decision not to. He's waited until today. The other aspect that I found rather disturbing was when the newspapers did float the story, and I have to be mindful of the terms. I don't want to quote, but the term that I recalled reading was when Mayor Allen was asked about it to comment on it. The only quote that was in the paper that I read was that it was a non-event. That doesn't sound to me like anybody who's taking responsibility for their actions. So I'm just struggling with the final report for conduct, simply acknowledging what went on in court, whereas the circumstances are very, very similar to the one in Kingston, with a code of conduct report and criminal charges arising from the same set of circumstances. So I'm really struggling with this. Why 30 over here, and on this one, just acknowledge it and throw it up on the website?
Thank you, Councillor Cabral, and I'll ask for comment from Janice, please.
Thank you, through the Deputy Mayor. So interesting comparison of the case in Kingston involving Councillor Stroud. Certainly from our perspective, it was qualitatively quite different than the circumstances we're dealing with here. In that particular case, as the councillors obviously read the decision, the matter ended up going through diversion. None of the information was ever known to the individual staff member who'd been aggrieved and impacted by it. And effectively, the criminal justice system failed completely and just, I guess we would say in layman's terminology, swept it under the rug. So it wasn't a situation where there was a guilty plea before a court. It was simply put into a diversion process where it became a piece of paper in the file cabinet of an organization. Nothing ever came to light. That is not, in our view, qualitatively the same at all as a circumstance where there is in fact a guilty plea on an agreed statement of fact. Certainly the councillor makes a point that what we see before us here absolutely is a guilty plea, but that's how our criminal justice system manages to deal to some degree efficiently with the volume of charges it processes. In this particular case, the legislation that we operate under is absolutely clear. We are required to step away while the criminal charges are being dealt with. And at the end, we simply, unless there's a whole other set of facts, we're not entitled to take a further step. So that's fairly clear to us from the legislation.
Thank you, Janice. Follow up, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I just also wanted to speak to Mayor Don Allen's explanation, I guess, at the beginning. And I wanted to speak specifically to his suggestion and the suggestion of somebody who wrote in a letter, I think, suggesting that this would have been the type of complaint that would have been better dealt with informally. And I really take exception to that. These were criminal actions, and given my background, I take them very serious. They were criminal actions that could have resulted in someone being injured. And the fact that a guilty plea to something else through a plea bargain was made, to me means that the statement of facts was agreed upon, but it's not read into court under oath. It's not given under oath. It's a statement of facts agreed upon between both the prosecutor and the Crown Attorney in order to allow for the judge to enter the guilty plea. What I'm trying to get at here is that this was not a comment that the mayor made to me that I took offense to. It's not a comment that maybe the mayor, or an action that maybe the mayor did. The mayor was at a function representing Springwater Township in the capacity as a mayor. And the charges were criminal in nature. The actions were criminal in nature. And I think I can't imagine myself reaching out to Crown Attorney or anybody else, or even the Integrity Commissioner for that matter, and trying to involve myself in that type of a thing. I did feel, however, that it was well beyond the reach of an informal resolution. And I was placed in the position where I felt obligated on behalf of the residents in my ward to file that complaint. It's not something I wanted to do. As a matter of fact, I'm rather upset that I was even placed in that position, but the actions that placed me there were not mine. The actions that placed me there was the actions of our mayor. And today's the day that he's come forward to try and tell everybody what happened. Maybe he could have just made a statement last fall.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral. Are there any other members of council who wish to speak? And Councillor Moore, please.
Thank you. Excuse me. I have a prepared statement because I seem to do better with that. I want to start by saying that I'm very glad this is almost over, and I'm glad for you too, Mayor Allen, that this is almost over. I'm looking forward to putting this behind us and to once again focus on the important work required of us all. This incident has certainly cast a shadow, and it's been an unwanted distraction over this council since June of 2019. If there's a discussion about this council not working well together, I would argue that this incident has truly contributed to that. As a councillor for Ward 4, where this incident occurred, I have felt a particular responsibility and obligation from the beginning to the residents, many of whom work at this establishment, as well as to acknowledge those who have been affected by impaired driving in the past. And impaired can be certainly by alcohol, by medication, or by physical, cause, as well as to acknowledge, as a mom of 3 boys, we teach our kids to own their behavior, to apologize, to learn from it, suck up the punishment and move on. What kind of role model do I want to be? This is why I requested the inquiry into the possible breach of Springwater Township's Code of Conduct. I have received many emails, messages, social media posts from people, local people inquiring about what's going on. Is it true? What does the mayor say? All of which I've had to reply, I don't know. Nothing's been said privately or publicly, which I assume is what the legal advice was. But in this case, I would say it probably wasn't good advice. It's important for you to hear a couple of these comments. I want to make you aware of how this has affected me too. Ward 4 resident number 1. On June 26th, my 19-year-old son was working at Vesper Hills Golf Club and was witness to the mayor's bad behavior. I have to say that I voted for Mayor Allen, and I've regretted it since that day. Not only did the mayor not apologize for being belligerent, but he not once reached out to apologize to the young people that he almost hurt. How does this set an example for our youth? He then asked for a pass because he was the mayor. Never mind, how do us residents trust him to make good decisions on our behalf? As our councillor, we expect you to do the right thing. Resident number 2, I am just wondering if council will be looking into Mayor Don Allen's actions, especially with him being convicted now. I do believe he was at a county golf tournament representing his constituents. I certainly feel he's an embarrassment and he doesn't represent my beliefs. He hasn't as much released an apology. He must feel very privileged. I personally feel he should resign. That's the kind of thing that I've had to answer. While I fully appreciate and respect the Integrity Commissioner's report and position, I once again find myself not in agreement with the recommendations. You have acknowledged Mayor Allen has violated the Code of Conduct. I think it was rule number 9. You have acknowledged that and based on your findings, you state that the mayor has acknowledged responsibility for his conduct. And while this may be true in a closed criminal court proceeding, I'm not even sure if that's the case, but it's not true in the case of public acknowledgement to the residents of Springwater Township. In most professions, you're accountable to your own regulatory body or college, as well to your process of socially addressing unlawful activity through the courts. These are separate and distinctly different. In this case, our residents are the regulatory body. and they are demanding a better representation, a better conduct, and a reprimand or an apology. Therefore, because this has not occurred or been acknowledged, if brought forward, I will support what the other councillors decide to do this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. And Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Actually, I have a question for the clerk, if I could speak to Clerk Renee.
Yeah, Clerk Ainsworth is available. Councillor Ritchie, please proceed.
Yes, thank you. Are we voting on this tonight, or can I do a friendly amendment, or do I place a motion on the floor? That's my question to the clerk.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, through you to Councillor Ritchie. The motion that is on the floor currently is what you see on the agenda. So it is to receive the report from the Integrity Commissioner, and that the report be posted on the township's website for public access. Should a member of council wish to make an amendment, it wouldn't be a friendly amendment unless there was a kind of a spelling mistake or some grammatical error. So you would have to officially table an amendment should you wish to see a different direction.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I wish to receive this, and further, be it resolved that Mayor Don Allen of Springwater Township be suspended of all remuneration and pay from the duties of mayor effective immediately and run for a period of 3 months or 90 days. I want to be able to vote on that and have a recorded vote on that.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. And you have a seconder, a seconder for that amendment? You do, and that's thank you, Councillor Hannah. So we have the amendment on the floor, and the amendment, Councillor Ritchie, if you could read that again, just
Yes.
for Clerk Ainsworth, before we continue. We do have a motion put forward and a seconder. If you could read that one more time for Clerk Ainsworth, please.
Yes, and further resolved that Mayor Don Allen of Springwater Township be suspended of all remuneration and pay from the duties of mayor effective immediately and to run for a period of 3 months or 90 days.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. And if it suits council, before we embark on discussion pertaining to this amendment, to ensure that our council isn't moving forward in ultra vires or in bad faith, is there an opportunity to have Clerk Ainsworth, is there availability to have, are we able to, I understand if there's a motion and there is a majority of council, it can, would there be any recommendation? If there's no finding, are we legally able to do that, or will we be looking for legal advice on that? Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, through you to council. So Mr. Swayze, who is the current Integrity Commissioner for the township, has provided an opinion that, and I'll read it to you exactly, that in his opinion, council does not have the power to suspend compensation unless the Integrity Commissioner finds that someone has contravened the code of conduct. Aside from that, I am unable to make comment to the matter. I would suggest that council would seek legal advice on what council's authority would be in this type of situation.
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. Councillor Brow, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. My understanding, and I stand to be corrected by principal integrities per se, is that the recommendations that are made by the Integrity Commissioner in their report are exactly that, recommendations. It is up to council to make the final determination on what actually happens. So I would suggest that, that we may be able to move forward should we wish to.
Yes, and thank you, Councillor Cabral, and that's, I hope that I was able to get that point across. Yes, we as council do have the final say in any of that. So we do have that on the table. So the amendment there Is there any other comments? That would, Councillor Ma Chapman, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Allen, or Deputy Mayor Coghlan. I'm not sure about this. We had another code of conduct that we voted against, that they didn't get reprimanded. I'm not saying that Mayor Allen was in the right. No matter no matter what happened, I don't strive for like anything drinking and driving, but he does take some heart to it and pleaded sort of guilty and dropped down the charges where he had the medical condition that he probably didn't want anyone to know at that time. Maybe he didn't, it was a personal thing. To me, I think we've spent enough time and we just need to move on. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Moore, I did see yours. If not, I can move on to, yes, thank you, Councillor Moore.
All right, could I just ask you to clarify, please, Deputy Mayor, the amendment versus what the clerk had explained to us and what would be on the floor at this time? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And on the floor at this time is the amendment that was brought forward by Councillor Ritchie. Should council vote to have that become part of the main motion, we would then vote on the main motion in its entirety. So at this point, the only discussion right now is to provide a greater sanction than one being offered by principal's integrity. Councillor Allen, or sorry, Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor Coghlan. Clerk Ainsworth, I think I would ask that you expand upon Mr. Swayze's opinion with respect to council's authority to do what they're proposing to do. In the communication that I had with him in determination of potential conflict of interest and clarifying that, he also did express his opinion with respect to this matter.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, through you to Mayor Allen. If I could just ask for clarification, the part that I read is verbatim in the opinion. As far as expanding on the information, I wouldn't be able to because it is the opinion of the Integrity Commissioner. So maybe just some clarification on what you're seeking from me.
Well, to me, he was quite clear that council doesn't have the power to suspend compensation unless the Integrity Commissioner finds that I've contravened the Code of Conduct. And the Integrity Commissioner has not found that I contravened the Code of Conduct.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And understanding that is correct, council would still have the opportunity to put a motion on the floor as councillor, an amendment on the floor as Councillor Ritchie has done. And I myself find that, you know, it would be in our best interest to seek legal as to that. There are a few cases in point law that have dealt with something like this. My concern is that we would be potentially dragging the corporation into something that we don't want to be part of. I mean, we've seen this in the last term of council where issues have been drawn out at the expense of the taxpayer, and it's not something that I personally want to embark on again. I do believe that the report is in front of us. The amendment as put forward by Councillor Ritchie, it would be my preference to, at the very least, refer that portion to staff for legal before proceeding in that direction, should that be the will of council. But understanding that should the majority of council decide to move in that direction, that would be the will. And Councillor Hanna, further comment?
Thank you. And just for clarification, I would suggest that the Integrity Commission's report does indicate that Mayor Allen violated the Code of Conduct. However, they're stating because he settled it or sort of confessed to it, then there's no recommendation on their part. It doesn't say he did not violate the Code of Conduct in my understanding of that report.
Thank you, Councillor Hanna. And Councillor Moore for your comment on the
Thank you,
amendment.
Mayor. Thank you. That's what I understood also. So could we direct that question, please, to one of the integrity commissioners to either confirm or deny? Thank you.
Thank you. And Janice or Jeff, the question was posed if there was, I believe it was Rule 9, and whether or not there was contravention of the code.
So just to clarify through the Deputy Mayor, as we said about 15 minutes ago, we think the report speaks for itself. We found it unnecessary to make any findings. We are reporting back to you with respect to the conclusion of the matter having been disposed of by the court.
And thank you, Janice, for that. I do believe, though, that we are looking to understand whether principal's integrity found Mayor Allen to be in contravention of the code of conduct or not. Janice or Jeff, please.
So again, the report is a public report. It speaks for itself. The matter has been disposed of by the court. That's also reflected in this recommendation report. You have the opinion of your current integrity commissioner. We're not going to debate the integrity commissioner's opinion. We think it speaks for itself. We're not going to rewrite our findings report here.
Okay, and I do apologize. I do believe that the intention of having principal's integrity present was to provide clarification to council. So I believe we were looking for that, but that's not going to be presented. I don't think we need to ask the question over and over again. Unfortunately, there is a I guess council has varying perceptions of the report, and we were looking for clarity on that. But if that can't be provided, I guess Councillor Moore, and I do want to ensure that we are speaking to the amendment that's on the table, so that we can vote on that to move back to the main motion, should that be. But just to make sure that the conversation here is on the amendment Councillor Ritchie put forward. Any further discussion on the amendment? Mayor Allen?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Crocker. I will state that the new Integrity Commissioner, Robert Swayze, has reviewed the report of the Principal's Integrity and has determined that it makes no findings that I've contravened the Code of Conduct.
Point of order, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Yeah, I think this is unreasonable. Principal's Integrity is the one who has looked at the report, and now we're asking someone that we asked not to look at the report to provide his opinion. And I think it's unfair that Mayor Allen is the one that's putting that forth. So in all reality, I think we either move on with this motion, because when I read this report, 32, 33, and 34 say, yes, contravention happened, acknowledged it to the criminal courts, and that's good enough for us. That's basically what it says.
Councillor Cabral, and I
yes.
appreciate this, and I'm not trying to stifle the conversation. I am trying to make sure that everybody is heard and all opinions are heard equally. Yes, there is a motion on the floor. I was simply asking to make sure that we are all understanding the severity of this, and that we may want to seek legal before we do this, because it could have implications on the municipality. If the majority of council want to provide a greater sanction, that is to the discretion of this, but should it turn into drawing this out more and more, to me, at least we can do our due diligence prior to making that decision. But if that's not the will of council, so be it. If you would like to call the vote, and I believe that's what you have just done, then that would proceed from having any further conversation. So Councillor Cabral, was that you asking to call the vote?
No, I wasn't asking to call the vote. Someone else may very well still like to speak. I was just taking exception to Mr. Swayze's private correspondence going to Mayor Allen being brought forth in a public forum.
Thank you. Any other members of council wish to speak to the amendment before we call the vote? All right, and we will call the vote. So again, Clerk Ainsworth, if you could speak. Oh yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. And also as a reminder, it was a recorded vote was requested by Councillor Ritchie for this portion. So I will read the amendment and council will be voting strictly on the amendment at this point. So the amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows. Add, be it resolved that Mayor Allen be suspended of all remuneration and pay effective immediately for a period of 90 days / 3 months. Councillor Ritchie, is that accurate for your amendment?
Close enough, yes.
Thank you. So a recorded vote was requested by Councillor Ritchie. When I state your name, if you could verbally state yes or no, and this again is strictly to the amendment. Councillor Cabral.
Yes.
Councillor Hannah.
Yes.
Councillor Chapman.
No.
Councillor Moore.
Regretfully, yes.
Councillor Ritchie.
Yes.
And Mayor Allen, I will ask if you will be voting on the matter.
Mayor Allen, you're on mute.
No, I won't be voting on this matter.
And Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
No.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. And moving forward, Clerk Ainsworth, this has now become the third point on the motion before council. If I was to want to have the motion separated into 3 parts for voting, I would then need to pass the chair. Is that correct?
That is correct. If you are looking to divide the motion, you would have to move that motion and unfortunately cannot move from the chair.
Thank you. If it would suit council, I would need to pass the chair at this point to bring forward a motion to have the motion before council now moved, separated into 3. My reasoning, or actually I can't speak to my reasoning for doing so before I have a seconder for that. So I can pass the chair not to Mayor Allen. Councillor Moore, are you willing to chair for a quick moment here?
If you all want to suffer through that, sure.
I'm sorry, I wish I could have given everybody a heads up, but and sorry, it would just I would just be requiring you to ask for a seconder on my motion so that I could potentially have our main motion divided into 3, please. So if you could ask for a seconder for me.
So do I have a seconder for the motion presented by Deputy Mayor Coughlin? We have seconder Councillor Maud Chapman.
Thank you, Councillor Moore, and thank you. So my reason for asking council to divide this motion into 3 is that I do believe that I would like to receive the motion and I would like it to be placed on the website. However, I do, as voted on before, I do not see a greater sanction to be put in place. I'm also hesitant as to the implication that could come to the corporation because of that greater sanction. It is simply for myself, just so that I can vote against the 3rd portion separately, but should it be to the will of this council to keep it remaining as 1, that is fine. I would just ask that if it's all, with all due respect, everybody, if it's all the same to everyone else, if we could have this motion divided into 3, please. And if Clerk Ainsworth, if you could speak to whether or not that's if that's okay, that would be great as well.
Thank you. Through the chair. So a motion to divide the question is procedurally acceptable. And as you requested, it would be divided into 3 parts if council does support this. So the motion would read that the motion now before council be divided in 3 parts by paragraph. It has been moved by Deputy Mayor Coughlin and seconded by Councillor Chapman. Now, Councillor Moore, you may ask for discussion on the matter and then call the vote when you are satisfied that discussion has taken place.
Thank you. So I see that Councillor Cabral would like to speak to the matter.
Thank you, Chair. I, be quite frank, don't see any purpose in dividing this, so I won't be supporting it.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to make comment? Councillor Ritchie?
Yes,
Sorry.
to the Deputy Mayor, why are we splitting this into three? And what are the three components to this?
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. And through Councillor Moore to Councillor Ritchie, the reason that I would like it split into three is because I do want to receive this. I do believe that there needs to be acknowledgement and that it should be made public. I do think that it should be on the website. However, I do not agree with a greater sanction. If it is remaining as one, I will then be having to vote against it. And I do not want to vote against this. I do believe that Mayor Allen, that there should be a consequence, that there should be acknowledgement for what has from the report. So that was my only reason for wanting it split into three, so that I could vote yes, yes, and then no.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Ritchie?
Just for a follow-up, we're splitting it in two. So where do you get three?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, as Clerk Ainsworth had just pointed out, the reason that it would be three is the first one is to receive the report from Principals Integrity. The second part would be to place it on the website. And the third part would be the amendment put forward by yourself.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a comment regarding that? Oh, Councillor Hanna?
Thank you. I don't see any purpose in doing this that's going to make things any difference. We're trying to get this done and move on, and I just think that's what we should do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, but it just seems to me that splitting it up into three is just to serve the Deputy Mayor's personal preference. And I understand that, but to be quite frank, I see it all as one inclusive package. Okay. So again, I can't support it.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I know I seconded it and I was also confused. We would also put 1 and 2 already on the website as it is. Basically, we're voting for 3, which we've already voted. Am I understanding that correctly?
So I think we'll go to the clerk for that reply.
Thank you, through you. If I could just ask for clarification from Councillor Chapman. Are you looking to see how the motion would be divided, or to see what you're voting on, or what you are asked to be voted on in a few moments?
Clarification. Sorry, Councillor Moore. Clarification on, I know what we're voting on, but how we're voting on, I guess. Maybe on your second comment.
Thank you. So maybe I'll just repeat it, Clerk, also. Clerk Ainsworth, so 1 is to receive the report, Councillor Ma. 2 is to place it on the website, and 3 is to have the greater sanction piece be number 3. Some councillors want it all at 1, and then Deputy Mayor would like it split into the 3. Does that help?
Follow on, Councillor Moore. Sorry, Deputy Mayor, and the purpose of 3.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And again, the purpose of 3 is that if this motion comes forward as 1, I would then need to vote against it because I do think that there is an opportunity, this could be viewed as acting in bad faith or in ultra vires. And I do think that it does place the corporation in jeopardy, as we did not seek legal counsel as to whether or not this is something within our purview. So I would be voting against the greater sanction. However, I strongly do, I wanted to receive the report and put it on the website as it was. So I'm going to call the vote because you're right, it is for my own personal and it doesn't serve the rest of council. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mayor Allen, you'd like to speak?
I'm sorry, point of order, Mayor Allen, I do believe that there was conflict called.
There was conflict called with respect to the pecuniary matter that arose from the last amendment. All I wanted to ask was, as I had asked before, that if the Integrity Commissioner's report is posted on the website, that I would ask that the statement that I made be also posted on the website.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'll ask the Clerk Ainsworth for that answer.
Thank you. That request would have to be approved by council through an amendment or through a notice of motion by yourself or another member of council later on in the meeting.
So thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. So that I'm clear, one of the council members would have to do that amendment later in the meeting, not now?
Thank you. Through you to council. It could be either way. Members of council, somebody from council could request an amendment to have Mayor Allen's statement included on the township's website, but it is also somewhat of a separate matter. So a notice of motion to that effect could also be submitted by a member of council at this meeting or a subsequent meeting.
So, okay, does anybody have anything else to say? All right, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, I'm just going to call the vote so that we could continue to move on. My apologies.
Okay.
So
I called the vote. First of all, sorry, if I could just go back, Clerk Ainsworth, I would be more than willing to put a motion forward to allow Mayor Allen to have his statement put on the website.
Through you to yourself, the motion that's currently on the table would have to be dealt with. The motion to divide, so that would have to be dealt with, voted on, and disposed of, and then a further amendment to the main motion could be proposed.
Okay, so then we'll call the vote for this amendment first.
No, the vote is called. Yeah.
Could I request a recorded vote, please?
So I see Councillor Ritchie would like to speak. Is he able to, or do we have to wait till after the vote? Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you. Through you. It is, as chair, it is your call. If you feel that discussion has been exhausted on this matter and you'd like to uphold the call for the vote, that is your call. But if you do allow it, the discussion has to pertain specifically to the division of the motion.
Okay, so Councillor Ritchie, I would just ask, did your comment have to do with the division of
yes, I just want to be clear about what we're voting on. And
okay,
then,
I believe it's still back to Deputy Mayor Coughlin's request to have this divided into 3 or to keep it as 1.
okay.
Am I correct, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
This is stressful. Okay.
Almost done.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you. May I proceed with the vote?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So just to remind council what the motion is that you will be asked to vote on, that the motion now before council be divided in 3 parts by paragraph. And this pertains back to the main motion as amended by Councillor Ritchie. So that is the motion that council is being asked to vote on currently. And there is a recorded vote requested by Mayor Allen. So when I call your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Cabral?
No.
Councillor Hannah?
No.
Councillor Chapman?
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie?
No,
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Yes.
Mayor Allen?
I'm not voting on this matter.
And Councillor Moore?
Yes.
That is a tie vote, and as such, the motion is lost.
Councillor Moore, if you would like to pass the chair back, you don't have to though.
I would love to pass the chair back to Deputy Mayor Coghlan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. And my apologies. So we have a main motion before us, and I do believe that we would want this main motion recorded. It will be voting on all three together. And sorry, Mayor Allen requests to speak.
May I seek an amendment to the main motion to have my statement in addition to the Principals Integrity Report posted on the website?
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Allen, and I do believe, Councillor Moore, you had spoke to that previously and that you would support that in form of a second then?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And as that is on, amendment is now on the floor. Councillor Hanna, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. I just have to go back to the problem I had with the Integrity Commission's report, and I had two independent witnesses state that I did not say the things I was accused of saying. I asked to have their statements and mine included in the official public report, and I was not successful in doing that. I'm not sure exactly why. My recollection of that specific point was maybe because I didn't bring it up like the mayor is doing it right now, but maybe the clerk could explain why mine wasn't done if we're going to go forward with allowing the mayor to put his on there.
Thank you. Clerk Ainsworth, please.
Thank you. Through you to council. The statement read by some members of council last year during the same type of process. It was requested of me to put it on the township's website under the Integrity Commissioner's page, where we have the contact information and where we would list any reports that would come in. Past practice for the township has been to add that type of document as an addition to the agenda folder in iCompass. And outside of having council authorization, that's what would be offered in this situation as well. So in the situation of council that Councillor Hanna is speaking to, council could have directed that, but because it was not a direction of council, staff followed the historical process of just adding the statement as a separate folder to the agenda document itself in iCompass.
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. I guess my concern, similar to Councillor Hanna's, is I do recall times when someone did ask to have their letter included and it didn't happen. I'd be more in favor of someone making a motion so that we can consider it a little bit further, possibly at the next meeting. And my reasoning for that is that Mayor Allen's statement is a statement that's quite useful for criminal courts in an agreed statement of facts. And to be quite frank, it's more of an exculpatory statement in my way of thinking that gave the mayor an opportunity to plea bargain to the lesser charge of careless driving. So I am not necessarily opposed to it. I just feel I'm being rushed into it at this juncture. I would prefer to see the motion go forward as it was.
Thank you. And any other members? Yes, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is it possible for us to be able to look at Mayor Allen's statement over the course of the next week and then consider it and bring it up at next council meeting?
Absolutely, that would be to the purview of a, right now this before us, so either Mayor Allen withdraws his request or council votes to have it included today, much like the request to refer for information that was brought forward before. That is to the will of this council. I mean, we can have a notice of motion brought forward at the next meeting to have this included should council wish to do so. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Conlon. My understanding from Clerk Ainsworth was that this could be tabled at the end of the meeting as a verbal notice of motion to be brought forth at the next meeting. So the opportunity still does present itself, and it does give us an opportunity, if Mayor Allen would be so kind as to provide us with a copy of that statement. I would like to review it in its entirety, and then I'd feel very comfortable in voting on it down the road.
Mm-hmm. So again, you're asking for time, so we can take a look at it and then vote on it at a later time again. So yes, so Mayor Allen, to your discretion, understanding the will of council, we can move forward with the vote this evening, or you could bring it forward as a notice of motion later in the meeting.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Colgan. I'll bring it forward as a notice of motion later.
So you'd be withdrawing your amendment as it stands.
Correct.
Thank you. So council, before us, we now have the main motion as it was read with the 3 parts, voting on that as a whole. If there's no other comments from council, we will move forward with a recorded vote. Clerk Ainsworth, can I ask you one more time to read the resolution in front of council, 3 parts together, and then have the recorded vote, please?
Thank you. Through you to council. The motion now before you would read that the report from the Integrity Commissioner regarding Mayor Allen dated September 24th, 2020 be received, and that the report be posted on the township's website for public access. And also, and be it resolved that Mayor Allen be suspended of all remuneration and pay effective immediately for a period of 90 days / 3 months.
Thank you.
May I proceed with the vote?
Please.
Thank you. And for clarification, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, is it you that is noted as requesting the recorded vote?
Yes, please.
When I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Cabral?
Yes.
Councillor Hannah?
Yes.
Councillor Chapman?
No.
Councillor Moore?
Regretfully, yes.
Councillor Ritchie?
Yes.
Mayor Allen?
I'm not voting on this because it involves a pecuniary aspect.
And Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
No.
That motion is carried.
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. And sorry, just allow me to pull up my agenda here again, but I do believe we can thank Janice and Jeff for their presentation with us this evening. And at this point, we'll move into question period. If it would serve council, do we want a quick bio break before we continue, or do we want to do that? Yeah, we just have a quick 3 minutes.
Yes,
Perfect.
please.
We will take a, oh, sorry, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. And may I just remind council that there is no way of muting the Zoom stream. So please put all of your microphones on mute while you go on break until we return.
Thank you,
And
Clerk
abstain
Ainsworth.
from any discussion.
Okay, Council, we can just give Councillor Hannah just a quick minute here before we resume. There he is. Perfect. All right, all council here, if we can resume on to question period. So moving on to question period, Clerk Ainsworth, were there any questions received?
Thank you. Through you to council. There were 4 submissions received, and I will read them individually, starting with a submission from Brian Smith and Ron Shearden, and it states, Deputy Mayor and members of council, we represent Snow Valley Ski Resort, Snow Valley Developments, Barrie Welding and Machine, and Western Mechanical, all of which operate in and around the township of Springwater. Together, we employ approximately 1,200 people and are one of Springwater's largest taxpayers. We would like you to consider our position with respect to any decision being made on the report of the Integrity Commissioner on the October 21, 2020 Council agenda. Over the decades, we have been heavily involved in the political environment of the township. We have been closely involved with many mayors and many council members and have paid witness to the importance of strong governance guiding the township. Our experience has shown that the more cohesive the council, the more robust the township. Alternatively, a fractured, incohesive council becomes stagnant, inefficient, and fails to move the township forward. We have worked with Mayor Allen over the past 6 years, first as deputy mayor and more recently as mayor. Our dealings with Mayor Allen have been professional, productive, and proactive. We have found him to be engaged and fair in his mayoral duties. Recently, he has helped us navigate, in conjunction with the township staff, through the process of developing employment lands in Hillsdale. Mayor Allen has always been true to his word and followed up on the issues at hand. It is our opinion that Mayor Allen is dedicated to his constituents and dedicated to his township as a whole. We expect all Springwater governance to show the same dedication to the township. We implore you, as your constituent and your taxpayer, put aside your differences and work together for the betterment of Springwater. The matter before the Integrity Commissioner has contributed to divisiveness amongst council members this term. We have all seen how divisiveness leads to poor decisions. It is our hope that council can work together and hold itself accountable to its responsibilities to the township of Springwater and its residents. Please, for the good of Springwater taxpayers, accept the recommendation provided by the Integrity Commissioner, put an end to this matter, and do what you were voted to do, lead a strong township.
Thank you, Clerk Worth. And the next question, please.
Thank you. The next submission was received from Jeff Kirk, a resident of Midhurst, and it reads, in 2019, Mayor Allen attended the County of Simcoe Warden's Golf Tournament and helped raise $28,000 for buses to support our long-term care homes. He also made a mistake. He drove home when he was tired. The path to continuous improvement is paved by those who demonstrate remorse when they are wrong, accept accountability for their actions, and display integrity and compassion for those they serve. Mayor Allen has demonstrated these attributes. As a resident of Springwater, I expect my council to abide by and follow the township's core values of accountability, continuous improvement, ethics, and integrity, recognition, and teamwork. By doing so, it is acceptable to receive the Integrity Commissioner's recommendations in full. Further pursuit of this matter would be an egregious use of township resources and rather improper. In the days and weeks that followed the golf tournament, 3 members of Springwater Council, Cabral, Hannah, and Moore, acting independently and not having attended the event, all alleged that Mayor Allen was in contravention of the Code of Conduct. All 3, following Part B of the complaint process, asked the Integrity Commissioner to proceed with a formal and exhaustive review. When my kids are fighting, I encourage them to solve their problems themselves. This is like the Part A informal complaint process with the township. Most of the time they do solve their dispute and do not need to escalate matters. Jumping to Part B is like asking mom and dad to solve your dispute before talking it out with your sibling. Escalation exists for a reason, but our code states persons and organizations are encouraged to initially pursue this informal complaint procedure. Cabral, Hannah, and Moore, I do not think you considered and follow proper procedure, and I would like you to at least have discussed your disputes with Mayor Allen before escalating. It is the proper and more cost-effective option. In uncertain times like these, we cannot permit our elected representatives to dwell on matters resolved by the courts and commissioners. We must move forward to address local concerns like smart growth, clean water, and better broadband.
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. And our third submission, please.
The third submission is from David Strong at 47 Finley Mill Road, and he states, "Thank you for keeping the public informed during these difficult times. I have a question regarding item 2.2 on the agenda for the October 21st council meeting. Item 2.2 refers to a letter sent by the Township of Springwater to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks on October 9th, 2020, regarding the Midhurst Water, Wastewater, and Transportation Class EA clearance of conditions for Stage 1 infrastructure. The Township's letter wisely requests that the MECP confirms the Township's position regarding the fulfillment of the conditions to permit the construction of the Carson Road Stage 1 infrastructure. This would be a necessary step, given that it was MECP which imposed these conditions, and it is they who will need to be satisfied that their conditions are met. Presumably, MECP will respond after they have received and studied the required written report from the Township to the Director, Environmental Assessment and Permissions Branch, advising how conditions 1 through 6 have been fulfilled. In the meantime, here are my questions. Question 1, he states, MECP Condition 6 requires that the Township post the SAR work plan and the odor mitigation plan to the interim wastewater treatment plant on the Township's website. According to current status for Condition 6, the said documents have been posted. However, we have been unable to find them on the Township's website. Please, would you kindly send me a link to these papers? The additional questions overleaf will presumably be eventually answered when the MECP has completed its assessment, but I include them here in case the answers are readily available at this time. And the additional questions noted are, and it states conditions taken from the table included with the Township's letter to the MECP. Condition 1, this table states that an updated SAR work plan was resubmitted back to the species at risk branch on July 20th, 2020. The question, has MECP agreed in writing that the SAR work plan resubmitted in July 2020 satisfies Condition 1? Condition 3, has the MECP agreed in writing that the updated Hutchinson's Environmental Technical Memorandum regarding the Heinz Emerald Dragonfly satisfies all parts of the Condition 3? Condition 5, the table states that the odor mitigation plan was submitted to the MECP in October 2020 in conjunction with the ECA application for the proposed Midhurst interim wastewater treatment plant. MECP will not yet have had sufficient time to review the plan and to confirm that the odor mitigation plan submitted in October 2020 satisfies condition 5. The question is, how was the township able to judge that this condition has been satisfied? And then condition 6, the township has posted the SAR work plan and the odor mitigation plan for the interim wastewater treatment plant on the township's website. And the question is, we were not able to find the SAR work plan and odor mitigation plan on the township's website. May we please have a link to these papers?
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. So for 2 parts, would we be able to, I guess, first through Clerk Ainsworth address the link being provided, and secondly, I will turn to Director Coleman for any readily available answers. Clerk Ainsworth first, please.
Thank you. Through you to council. Mr. Strong's first question has been responded. I did provide a link to the document he was requesting in an email to him yesterday.
Thank you. And secondly, Director Coleman, request for any readily available information, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, and through you to council and to Mr. Strawn. Basically, we have requested that the MECP reply either with their concurrence or if there's additional work required to our letter. So in terms of, I think 3 of those 4 questions, that's basically the answer. We're waiting to hear from the MECP whether they concur with our findings. As for the odor mitigation plan, it was peer reviewed by our township engineer. They have not found any concerns with it. So by that, we have submitted it to the MECP along with their design. So number 1, we have requested again in writing from the MECP their concurrence, but they will also review that odor mitigation plan along with the design for the plant. And if they concur that this odor mitigation plan is suitable, they will issue an ECA, which is an environmental compliance approval that will allow the developer to hire a contractor to build the plant and ultimately accept the odor mitigation plan.
Great. Thank you, Director Coleman. And CEO Schmidt, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to members of council, just further to Director Coleman's comments and Clerk Ainsworth's comments. So the township did or has revised the web page on the township's website for this specific item. And so under the current development section of our website or web page, we do have the official letter from the minister, as well as township staff's letter back to the ministry, as well as the species at risk plan and the odor mitigation plan are all posted there for public access. So the information is there, and if members of council and or the public still have questions, we'll be happy to answer any of those questions.
Thank you, CEO Schmidt. Clerk Ainsworth, our 4th submission, please.
Thank you. And the 4th submission is from Bill French at 3612 Grenfell Road. And he states, considering thousands of people must put themselves at some risk to go to work each day during this pandemic, including some of Springwater's administrative staff, emergency workers, and public work employees, would it not be appropriate for the council members to do the same? Since the council chambers at Springwater is large and has a high ceiling and modern ventilation system with easy physical separation with minor modifications, and the fact that I understand in communication with the CAO that the township has devices for misting, sanitizing, and disinfecting sprays, would it not be a sign of unity by members of council to return to some sort of normalcy by conducting council meetings in the chamber? With the glass divider in the chamber, the public could also be engaged. I invite comments, please. And a follow-up to that question is, if council intends to remain conducting virtual meetings in isolation, much the same as you do with presentations and delegations, could not the public ask questions during question period using your virtual meeting technology?
All right, thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. Again, I'm CEO Schmidt, pertaining to council remaining virtual. Is there a comment from CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for council's consideration, so back in July, I believe it was July of this year, as well as in August, there were 2 letters submitted to township staff, which I believe were submitted to members of council and the public from the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit, speaking to this specific item and encouraging individuals to, or councils to continue to hold meetings virtually until further notice. And since the August letter, we continue obviously to have our weekly calls, CAO calls with the Chief Medical Officer of Health for Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit. And we have had these discussions. And again, I don't believe the position has changed from the health unit. They are, obviously we're in a second wave now. And, back in August, we were doing better, but obviously things have changed for the province and for Canada as a whole and globally. And so I believe the position would still hold that virtual meetings should still be conducted until further notice.
Thank you, CEO Schmidt, and Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you through you to council, and just to further information on that, council authorized electronic meetings and electronic participation in meetings on a temporary basis, and it does expire at the end of December. I will be coming to council with a report the first meeting of December so that council can make a decision on whether they would like the bylaw to lapse as it is currently scheduled, or if they wish to see an extension to the virtual attendance at meetings. The Municipal Act was changed on a permanent basis, so there is no expiry date to the provisions in the Municipal Act. So this is something that is coming back to council for their consideration, and the information from the health unit, current information at the time that the report is written, will be included as well as what their recommendations are. And in regards to question period, council can set changes forward if they wish to see an amendment to how question period is dealt with. The format you see before you was established in a time where we weren't even quite sure how electronic meetings would proceed. It was more of a temporary basis, but as this is seen as a bit lengthier, council may direct staff to make some changes to question period. It could be, as Mr. French has stated in his question, that people would need to register and be on camera just as a delegation would. There would be changes to the due dates just because currently the due date for question period, or the timeline, is at 4:30 on the day of the meeting, but that would not be conducive to setting up persons to provide their question. So should council wish to see changes to the question period, they can do so by bringing up an item for future consideration.
Perfect. Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. And there are no further submissions. And seeing no further submissions, I will pass the chair back to Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. So we are at 5.1 minutes of boards, committees, and organizations. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Moore and Councillor Cabral, are there any comments with respect to minutes contained in 1, 2, or 3? Okay, the motion reads that the minutes of boards, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received as information. Minutes of the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting of February 25, 2020. Minutes of the Cultural Activities Advisory Committee meeting of March 3rd, 2020. Minutes of the Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting of January 30th, 2020. All those in favor? It is carried. Item 6, correspondence and information items. There are no items. Item 7, action reports. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Ma, and Councillor Moore. Are there items that you'd like to discuss or any items that like to be pulled? Councillor Moore?
I'd like to pull 7.8, please.
0.8. Any others? Okay, then we'll read the motion and then we will deal with 7.8. That the action report items 7.2 through 7.8 be received and that the recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. 7.2 draft backyard chickens licensing bylaw. 7.3 Elmvale BIA Board of Management appointments. 7.4 updated consolidated fees and charges bylaw. 7.5 group benefits program renewal. 7.6 ZB 220-008 Elmvale Village Subdivision Gallo Phase 2. 7.7 ZB 220-9 Graham Lot 5 Plan 335 with the exception of 7.8, which will be dealt with separately. All those in favor? That is carried. 7.8 pertains to the appointment bylaw for building inspectors from RSM Building Consultants, Inc. and Councillor Moore. I invite your questions, comments.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and I'll direct this to Director Ippolito. If you could please indulge me, I have something prepared also, and I know I've approached you with this previously, but this is just a bit more formal.
Before you proceed, Clerk Ainsworth is wanting to
sorry.
1 second. You're muted.
My apologies. Thank you, Mayor Allen. We would require a seconder for this motion.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin is seconding it. Okay, sorry. Proceed, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. So I have to read my statement. It's from the City of Ottawa, Director Ippolito. In order to meet the challenges presented by the departure of experienced inspectors, the Building Code Services branch concluded that the best way to fill vacancies was to recruit college or university grads, building construction technologists, engineering technologists, architectural technologists, engineers, and architects with the minimum experience and place them in internship programs. The program would be designed to provide the building code and regulatory training that would satisfy both the provincial requirements vis-a-vis minimum qualifications as well as the city's qualifications for entry-level building official positions. They have developed a very successful building official internship program. Recognized also that there was no legal or risk management implication to this. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has recognized the difficulty that graduates of these programs are having who wish to become building officials in gaining employment and have recommended apprentice or intern type positions within municipalities. So given the fact that we are going to soon see significant growth and will likely require staff versus consultants, interns can gain experience while getting to know the geography. It makes good business sense for succession planning also. I am proposing that a staff report be generated as to the cost of the consultant versus intern, and in the short term place this request on hold, as well as completing research related to the successes and challenges of other municipalities and cities who have incorporated the use of interns and students in their building departments. I'll just skip the rest. Sorry, so I don't take up too much more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. So we have to, out of that, craft an amendment.
Yes, please.
So Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen. May I suggest to Councillor Moore a deferral, or my apologies, a referral to staff to investigate the pieces that you've just mentioned?
Yes, please. I'd like to do that exactly and not approve the bylaw. Is this a bylaw as requested or the appointment bylaw?
It is a bylaw that we would be approving, but as Clerk Ainsworth said, your amendment would be along the lines of referring it to staff.
Okay.
Clerk Ainsworth, and then and then I'll go to Director Ippolito and then the other councillors that are flashing cards.
Thank you. Procedurally, if Councillor Moore's referral is supported by council, then once we would get to the bylaw portion of the meeting, I would cross off that bylaw and the motion would be amended with the exception of, and then naming that bylaw specifically. So it would be the rest of the bylaws could move forward and that one could be held back from that motion if your motion to refer is successful.
So can you give us the wording of the amendment then to refer, Clerk Ainsworth? So
Thank you. If you provide me a moment, I'll be able to draft that for you.
Thank you. Maybe in the interim, we'll go to Director Ippolito. He had his hand up, and then the other councillors.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a couple of points. The intent of this appointment bylaw was to expand our repertoire, if you want, of individuals we can use from RSM. RSM is not intended to replace any building inspectors. And I can tell you next year, we are going to be looking at hiring, or we will be pitching the idea of hiring another inspector. And I will be more than happy to entertain, or I would even suggest that we take a look at that point in time, an interim or a junior position. We've used the junior position in the past, which actually has some additional benefits. However, at this point in time, the intent is for an immediate assistance. And just instead of using one individual, now we can use 3 individuals from the same firm in order to do it. And only on an as-needed basis. So we have a specific project where we just don't have the expertise, we can do it. If we did the report or we waited to do a report to council for an interim, we will be probably getting in the hole a bit more in terms of review time. So I just wanted to make mention of that for consideration at this point.
Thank you. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. I have drafted the motion as follows. Councillor Moore, please make any corrections you see fit. It's worded that the report now before council be referred to staff to seek a further report outlining cost implications of a consultant service versus the hiring of an entry-level building official. Is that the information you would like included, or would you like further information?
Councillor Moore.
Sorry, thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. What I had asked also was completing some research related to the successes and challenges of having interns, especially, or the challenges that other municipalities have faced who've incorporated the use of interns and, I would say, junior building inspectors. So if that could be provided in the staff report. If Director Ippolito feels, though, that this is something urgent, that he certainly needs to use the consultants right away, I don't want to step in the way of that. I just would like to have this also come forward.
I'll get to councillors. I just want to get CAO Schmidt to comment first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Moore. And just further to Director Ippolito's comments, this is an immediate need. Essentially, we are staff in our building services department are under a lot of pressure right now with trying to ensure review times are being met. I don't know. I think the last number I heard is we have 35 to 40 permits in the hopper that are so. You know, we have a bit of a backlog there, and the intent is for this was to try to minimize or alleviate that backlog. But further to your point, Councillor Moore, absolutely. You know, as Director Ippolito mentioned, we will likely be coming forward with a proposal in the 2021 budget for another building official. And at that time, absolutely, we could explore the opportunity of partnering with maybe it's Georgian College or any other trades school in the area that, you know, we could look at an intern or we could look at hiring a junior official and building that succession plan, as you mentioned. So I just wanted to your point, and I think you'd mentioned that before I spoke here, is it is immediate need. Staff, we have some major pressures in our building services department right now. So I would ask council to please approve this to assist our staff in building services. Thank you.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you. I could either withdraw the amendment, or I can at least phrase it to say that I'm not intending to step in the way of this bylaw, but that I still would like the cost comparison done for the consultant versus staff, and that we could potentially hire 2 junior building inspectors for the price of the consultant, or for the price of an experienced building inspector. So however we want to put that forward, I'm not sure.
CAO Schmidt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think through you to Councillor Moore, that could be something that we could, as justification in our program change for the new position in the budget. That's something that maybe we can provide that analysis in that justification and show what the differential would be as you're mentioning. So hopefully that would suffice.
Councillor Moore, so you're willing to withdraw it on that basis?
Yes, I'm just wondering if I should maybe put this forward as an information report request, or
item for future consideration.
Item for future consideration, yes.
Okay, so you've agreed to withdraw it, and we'll bring it up. Okay, other councillors, still put your cards up if you want to comment, given what's transpired. Councillor Ritchie.
It's been withdrawn.
Off mute, please, Councillor Ritchie.
It's been withdrawn.
Yes, but, well, it has been withdrawn. So we're actually, we're back to the motion. And are you making the motion, Councillor Moore, then?
Nope.
Well, some Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The main motion has been moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
But I withdrew it.
So does that pertain then? That doesn't pertain to 7.8 now. We're trying to deal with that, though.
Thank you. Yes, that's the mover and seconder for the item 7.8 as it was originally outlined in the agenda, but without any changes.
Okay, so in that we're not changing it, we don't need a mover and seconder.
We have one.
Yes, we have it. Okay, and so the motion reads that the report from the Director of Building Services regarding the appointment bylaw for building inspectors from RSM Building Consultants, Inc., dated October 21, 2020 be received, and that the necessary bylaw be presented to council for consideration on the October 21, 2020 meeting for the appointment of Mandy Harris and Barbara Mockney as building inspectors for the Township of Springwater. All those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Actually, just a quick question for Director Ippolito. I'm just wondering if there's any kind of a pecking order in the building department when it comes to inspections. All I'm suggesting is, do you have a pecking order where the less experienced inspectors would maybe do, let's say, the easier inspections? Or is it just whoever gets it, gets it?
Director Ippolito.
Through the Mayor Allen to Councillor Cabral, there is a little bit of a pecking order, to say the least. We also look at it territorial wise too. There's no point sending the junior person or maybe someone who doesn't have the same amount of experience to the north end to do one inspection when you already have an inspector who's going to be around the corner. So we try to use a little bit of logistics in terms of how we're going to, who we're sending there. However, with that being said, yeah, we have a lot of times looked along the lines of decks, for instance, are a good example.
Yeah.
Little simpler projects. Those are ones where we, in the past, what we've done is the junior positions generally deal with smaller projects, and we develop them that way.
Okay.
In the code, there's also like certain hierarchies in terms of buildings that they can and cannot do based on their qualifications. So we look at that as part of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to 8.1 information reports. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Cabral. Any questions or comments with respect to any of these three? Okay, it reads that report items listed herein be received as information. Bylaw activity report, September 2020. Update to 20-year capital water and wastewater plan. Drinking water inspection results for Phelpston. All those in favor? That is carried. Verbal reports. Director Spagnuolo, can you give us any updates on official plan and economic development, please?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just like to report that staff is preparing a presentation in concert with WSP. What the presentation will do is go over the background studies that have been underway for quite some time now. The date for that meeting is set for December 14th, at which WSP will provide an overview of the background studies, receive questions from council, and will most likely seek direction on key stakeholders that they'd like to have included in stakeholders meeting that are to occur in early 2021. The second report is that I'd like just to let council know that staff is preparing for a public meeting for additional residential units. That is going to take place on November 26th. You'll note that it's an odd day. I believe that's a Thursday. The reason for the alternate day is because we have council deliberations scheduled for the regular Monday meetings. That's all I have to report at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Midhurst development and COVID updates. CAO Schmidt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of updates here with Midhurst development. So as you're probably aware, the developers are continuing to move forward with their earthworks for the mixed subdivision, and they are nearing the completion of those works. As mentioned earlier tonight, through question period, the staff has recently sent a letter to the ministry regarding the minister's conditions on the EA. And noting how we feel those conditions have been satisfied. As part of these conditions, again, we were required to post the species at risk plan and the odor mitigation plan on our website, which they have. They are there now, as well as I mentioned earlier, the staff's letter is also available on our website. Further to that, the staff and the developer continue to work away on the execution of their sales office agreement. So that is close to being finalized, subject to some minor revisions and their submission of securities. In addition to that, they have submitted a building permit application for the sales office, and our building services staff are currently reviewing that. And just the last update on Midhurst is regarding the recruitment for the development engineering coordinator. Those interviews, first interviews were conducted last week. I believe candidates have now been narrowed down, and I believe second interviews are scheduled for early November, with the hope that somebody will be on board in early January of 2021. So those are my updates for the Midhurst development. If members of council have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Okay, I'm not seeing any, so please proceed to COVID.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to members of council. So again, just a couple of quick updates here on COVID. So again, our emergency community control group, we continue to meet and discuss and monitor the current public health situation and its impacts directly on the township. We are closely monitoring the current public health restrictions that are being imposed in Toronto, Peel, Ottawa, and York. And as I mentioned earlier, we do continue to have weekly discussions with Dr. Gardner and his staff at the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit. At this time, I don't have any updates with regards to any modified restrictions for Simcoe, although I wouldn't be surprised, to be quite honest with you, with the way things are going, but that's my own opinion. To date, Springwater does have 20 confirmed cases of COVID-19, of which 18 have been recovered and 1 has passed away. The latest case was reported on October 14th, and it was a male in the age range of 18 to 34. As of October 5th, all township facilities, with the exception of our community halls or centers, have now reopened. As you know, the Elmville Arena reopened on October 5th for private bookings, and to date, everyone appears to be abiding by proper protocols. So we do thank everyone for their patience and for abiding by those protocols. And I believe that's my update for tonight, Mr. Mayor. Happy to answer any questions from members of council.
Thank you, CEO Schmidt. Any questions of either of those? Okay, we move on to county updates 9.0. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just thinking here when the talked about the arena. I just wanted to say that I know there was some issues at the arena, booking conflicts, and I just wanted to make mention of Brianna and CAO Schmidt for apparently resolved them quite expeditiously and to everyone's satisfaction. So I really want to thank you about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to county updates 9.5, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Shaking your head, so that means there are no updates.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. No, there's no update. I guess governance meant today. So once there's a report on that, there'll be an update to the rest of council. But at this time, it was actually our last meeting was probably one of our quickest meetings. So there was nothing to report from that.
Thank you. Municipal updates 9.6. Does anyone have any municipal updates? Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe most of council is aware, I don't know, but there's a website called Midhurst Families. And on that website, they're talking about the serious accident that occurred on the Thanksgiving weekend on the St. Vincent curves. A lot of chatter there about different things that should take place, but I believe that the biggest cause of the accident is just speed too fast. If it wasn't for the curves, they'd probably come into Midhurst airborne. So I believe the problem there is the speed. We have in budget, as you know, approved to have rumble strip grooves cut in the approaching lanes to try to slow traffic down. I have had some contact with staff, and with the problem with COVID-19 is getting a contractor to come and do it. I don't know whether it'll get done by the end of the year, but it'd be nice before the roads get slippier if we could get those grooves in the road. I do understand too on that website, they mentioned on there, they've been talking to yourself, Mayor Allen. You've had contact with at least one individual, Mr. Hugh, I think is his name. And also they have been in touch with our roads department. So I would just ask that any correspondence that occurs in Ward 5 that's related to speed, and especially on St. Vincent, I'm always trying to deal with the issues there. I'd appreciate being involved in those or contact or copied on those emails. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO Schmidt, do you have anything to add to this particular matter at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything to add. Director Coleman may have some comments.
Director Coleman?
Mayor Allen, so through you to Councillor Hanna, we have had different discussions on St. Vincent Street, and we continue to ensure that our signage and speed signage and curve warnings, chevrons, etc., do meet the minimum maintenance standards and are inspected regularly to ensure that they're in place. We are awaiting a timeline from the contractor to put those rumble strips down. Unfortunately, yes, due to COVID, they were shut down for a period of time as they were not essential. So they are trying to get caught up, and I just have a staff on vacation this week who were working on it. So he is awaiting confirmation from the contractor as to when that could get completed. So like I said, we continue to monitor it and definitely try to ensure that we meet the minimum maintenance standards there.
Thank you. Councillor Hanna?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Director Coleman. I know we meet the minimum standards, but given that the seriousness of some of the actions that occurred there over the past, as you know, a couple of years ago, a young man was killed there. Maybe in addition to the minimum standards, a few more signs trying to encourage people to slow down might be considered. I'd appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, any other municipal updates? All right, moving on to notices of motion. I'll turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Coughlin and make a notice of motion.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And your notice of motion?
Notice of motion is that the statement Mayor Don Allen presented following the Integrity Commissioner's Code of Conduct report at item 3.2 on the October 21, 2020 council agenda, attached to this motion, be posted on the Springwater website alongside the Integrity Commissioner's September 24, 2020 report posted.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I would look for a seconder that, sorry. No, I don't need a seconder for that. We can't speak to it right now. Okay, so that will be on. And then I guess the request question I would have then to Clerk Ainsworth would be disclose the actual information that Mayor Allen read. Understanding that earlier this evening, members of council were requesting to be able to go over it before a decision made. Would that be then, would the wording be included in our next agenda package so that we can fulsomely consider it? To Clerk Ainsworth. Sorry, to Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. Through you. Mayor Allen may choose to send it to members of council should he wish at any time, and the motion would be placed on the next agenda. If the statement is provided, it could also be placed as part of that motion. But as mentioned, Mayor Allen may also choose to submit the statement to members of council individually.
For clarification, read in the motion that attached to this motion, I made reference to that. So
okay, my apologies for missing that.
Will be attached and it will be on the agenda.
Thank you. And I will pass the chair back to Mayor Allen to see if there's any more items or future
notices of motion.
Notice of motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Any other notices of motion? Then moving on to item 11, items for future consideration. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So I guess I'm going to ask for a staff report. Again, to model after the City of Ottawa's building official internship program, and how we could incorporate that into the Township of Springwater's building department. I'd like to have also a cost comparison of the consultants versus our current building inspector, just to show that it is financially responsible to use consultants versus our own staff. I also would like to note that the bylaw we approved is temporary in nature, that though we appointed the two lady building inspectors, that's not going to be something forever and ever.
Thank you. Did you capture that, Clerk Ainsworth? Yes. Okay, that's been noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other items for future consideration?
Mayor Allen?
CAO Schmidt has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering if Councillor Moore wouldn't mind sharing some of that information from the City of Ottawa. Just help us track it down, that's all.
Yeah, for sure. I'll send you the link.
Thank you.
Clerk Ainsworth and then Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. That request for an item for future consideration was moved by Councillor Moore. It has to be seconded and then voted on by council. I have drafted based on the conversation from earlier. If I may read that and see if Councillor Moore is in agreement.
Okay.
That the item for future consideration presented by Councillor Moore requesting a report outlining cost implications of a consultant service versus the hiring of a building official, and that the report includes successes and challenges of utilizing entry-level building officials, as well as a proposed internship program, be hereby approved. Have I captured everything, Councillor Moore?
I think probably Director Ippolito and the CAO understand what I'm looking for also from the City of Ottawa comparisons. So I think that's fine, Clerk Ainsworth.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin. All those in favor? That is carried. Any further items for future consideration? Yes, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I guess it would it might actually be a notice of motion. So my apologies if I'm speaking too late. Just with pertaining to Swayze and our Interim Commissioner moving forward, I would like to better understand, as I am sitting here right now very concerned with the decision our council has made. I am not acting against the decision of council. I fully respect the decision that was made by the majority of this council. However, I am very concerned that we are entering into another costly endeavor for the residents of Springwater. We've already done it once, costing over $300,000, and I just want to be very sure. And no, I'm not putting forward a motion to reconsider this evening. However, I'm just curious, is there an opportunity then still for our council to be privy to the information as to our ultra vires or in bad faith? I just want us to make sure that we have the information in front of us to do our due diligence so that we don't further financially implicate the residents of Springwater Township with items, whether it's a compliance audit or a integrity commissioner report. I just am fearful that we are embarking on that without the proper due diligence before making that decision. So I don't know if it's to Clerk Ainsworth or CEO Schmidt, but is there a way to have that information presented to our council? Might be too late for this time, but so that should there be another opportunity or another vote being called, that we are informed before making said decision.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Anything pertaining to the decision that was just made by council at this meeting would require a reconsideration because it would affect the outcome of that motion that was passed by council. What I can offer is that in November, council will be receiving a training session with Mr. Swayze, and those kinds of discussions can happen there. Those kinds of questions can be asked of the integrity commissioner because they're not based on specific circumstances. They're just scenario based, and he may be able to provide further guidance and advice during that session.
Okay.
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth, and I won't be putting forward a motion to reconsider because I do believe that Councillors Moore, Hannah, Cabral, and Richie did fully understand what I was asking at the time. So I guess I will wait till our training session and continue from that avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moving on to item 12, bylaws. May I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor? Councillor Moore, Councillor Cabral. Given all these bylaws still apply, Clerk Ainsworth, correct? Yes. Okay, that the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. 220-78, appointment of Elmvale BIA Board of Management. 220-79, appoint building inspectors, Andy Harris and Barbara Mosney. 220-80, animal control bylaw. 5000-320, ZB 220-009, Graham. 5000-321, ZB 220-008, Gallo Phase 2. 5322 LH 220-06 Halliburton. All those in favor? That is carried. Mover and seconder for the confirmatory bylaw, please. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Cabral. That bylaw 220-81 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on October 21, 2020 be listed herein, be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? It is carried. And a mover and seconder for adjournment. Councillor Ma and Councillor Moore. That the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 9:02 p.m. to meet again the regular meeting November 4, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you and good night.